Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom, I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Office of the Prime Minister on this Wednesday, the 27th of November, day 418 of the October 7th War. Just a couple of quick points from me and then we'll get straight to your questions. On our fallen soldiers, I have the names of two more young men who have unfortunately made the ultimate sacrifice since our last briefing in defense of this country. Taking the number of Israel's fallen soldiers since October the 7th to 806. Sergeant First Class Yonah Betzalel Brief was 23 years old and from Modi'in. He was a combat medic, seriously wounded in battle on October the 7th, 2023 itself, the day of the massacre last year, and sadly succumbed to his wounds. And Sergeant Tamer Osman was 21 years old and from Kfar Yassif, and he fell in battle in the north of Gaza. The achievements of the military campaign are many, but the war has exacted a very heavy price. Our hearts are with the bereaved families. May their memories be a blessing. Now to the ceasefire agreement. As you know, the agreement in Lebanon came into effect this morning. From Israel's perspective, we certainly will adhere to the agreement, as the Prime Minister has made very clear the length of the ceasefire depends on what happens in Lebanon. We will adhere to the agreement, but we will also enforcement. The key is enforcement. That's where these agreements have fallen in the past, enforcement. We will respond forcefully to any violation. With the US's full understanding, Israel maintains full freedom of military action. So if Hezbollah violates the agreement and tries to again rearm itself, we will defend ourselves. If it tries to rebuild terrorist infrastructure near our border, we will defend ourselves. If it launches a rocket, if it digs a tunnel, if it brings in a truck carrying rockets, we will defend ourselves. Israel will respond forcefully to any violation. Now, the Hezbollah that decided to attack us from Lebanon on October the 8th last year is not the same Hezbollah today. They fired over the last 418 days 17,000 rockets at Israel. Daily attacks, 250 on Sunday alone, but we have pushed them back decades. Nasrallah, their chief killer, eliminated. Their top leadership eliminated. Most of their rockets and missiles eliminated. Thousands of terrorist killers eliminated. Their underground terror tunnels right on our border, designed for another October the 7th massacre, this time carried out by the best funded, the most organized, and the most heavily armed terrorist organization on the entire globe. The infrastructure they had spent years creating has been demolished. Dozens of Hezbollah terror high-rises in Beirut's Dahia district have been brought down. All this in just 3 months. This has also come at a cost of Lebanese civilians who have been used as human shields by the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Now, everyone around the world told us we could not do it. Thank God, Israel's brave men and women did it, but of course, at a heavy price of our armed forces and the sacrifice of our people. Next, on the aid going into Gaza, I can share with you the latest figures as of today. 40 pallets of food, that's 7 tons, were airdropped over Gaza yesterday. Also yesterday, 139 humanitarian aid trucks entered Gaza via the Kerem Shalom crossing Erez and the new crossing 147. The trucks arrived from Jordan and from Egypt and also from Israel. 44 of these trucks entered northern Gaza via the Erez crossing. 72 trucks were collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom by international organizations, but still our daily reminder that 730 trucks worth of aid are sadly languishing and waiting to be picked up on the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. That means they have passed Israeli security inspection. They are simply sitting on the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. We have told the United Nations again and again, and other aid organizations, send in your trucks. Israel will facilitate their entry and then distribute the aid. It's absolutely key to the success of ensuring that Gazans are fed. Also in the last 24 hours, I can tell you that 6 tankers of fuel and 6 tankers of cooking gas were transferred into Gaza. A convoy of 55 trucks entered Gaza directly through Gate 96, and the rotation coordination of humanitarian personnel has been successfully completed. Also in the last 24 hours, a mobile operating room entered Gaza for the IMC field hospital in the Deir al-Balah area. That's in central Gaza. This field hospital provides daily medical care to hundreds of residents through operating rooms, intensive care units, and treatment departments. The newly entered mobile operating room will expand the hospital's existing capabilities. So that's the end of our briefing today. I'll now take your questions. Please put them in the chat together with your outlet. Okay, first question here I can see is from Jane Merrick from the I newspaper. Has Israel received clarity from the British government over whether our Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would be immune from prosecution under the ICC warrant if he arrived in the UK? Thank you for that question, Jane. I haven't seen any such thing. We've made our points clear on the ICC. I'll just quickly share with you our current thoughts on the ICC. As you know, we believe the ICC judgment is wholly inappropriate and erroneous. I'll share with you our reasons why very quickly. Firstly, we reject outright the issuance of the illegal arrest warrants against the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, and the former Defence Minister. Since the beginning of this war, which began, of course, with the murderous terrorist attacks on Hamas on October the 7th last year, the State of Israel has acted and will continue to act in accordance with international law to protect our citizens. The court's decision is the epitome of absurdity. It places the attackers and the attacked alongside each other. It's an unparalleled moral folly. It's a black day for the International Criminal Court, which has today, we believe, lost all legitimacy to continue its operations. The court has no jurisdiction to discuss Israel's case. Israel is not a signatory to the court and not a member of the court, and it's made clear that we reject here in Israel its jurisdiction. Many countries and also international law experts have made it clear that the court is exceeding its authority and is acting without any jurisdiction in this case. The State of Israel is a strong democracy with an independent and effective judicial system that is respected internationally. The court's accusations are baseless and they demonstrate a discriminatory attitude towards Israel, and they distort international law and are harmful to every single democratic nation that is currently or will in the future defend itself and fight terrorism. Okay, next question here is from Lior Soroka from the Washington Post. France said today it won't arrest the Prime Minister under the ICC warrant. Was this a demand that came up as part of the negotiations for a ceasefire in Lebanon? Thank you, Lior. I haven't got anything to add to that or any information to share with you on that. Next question is from Hannah Julian from the Jewish Press. 2 questions. President Joe Biden and US envoy Amos Hochstein have both said unequivocally the agreement has been designed as a permanent ceasefire. This is not the way it's been portrayed by the Prime Minister last night. Can you comment? Thank you for that question, Hannah. Well, let me share some light on this. we here in Israel and the government of Israel certainly wants peace on our northern border. The primary reason for fighting this war against Hezbollah has been to get our people home. The tens of thousands of our people displaced from their home in sovereign territory. So we most definitely want this peace to continue. That's an absolutely key, and that's, I think, has wall-to-wall support here in Israel. We are, of course, very aware that we've been in this situation before, but the key point I want to share with you, Hannah, is enforcement. In the past, there has not been enforcement. In the past, for instance, the United Nations Resolution 1701, after the 2006 war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, made clear that Hezbollah should not be in the area between our northern border and the Litani River. It remained in that area, it dug tunnels, it smuggled in rockets and UAV drones and missiles under the nose of UNIFIL, and of course used those weapons to deadly effect on our people. Now we're talking about enforcement, and that's what all of us want here in Israel, and that's what we are after with this agreement. Now, this agreement is gradual. Over the next 6 weeks, we want the Lebanese army to fill the gap where Hezbollah is right now, and we do, of course, want to maintain peace on our northern border. But no one should be in any doubt. Israel, while adhering to this agreement, the ceasefire agreement, we will defend ourselves, and I've made clear the reasons how, the why and how. Next part of your question, Hannah, is since the start of the ceasefire at 4 a.m. this morning, there have been 6 documented violations of the ceasefire, with Hezbollah terrorists already attempting to return to Kfar Kela across the border from Mutula. Does this end the ceasefire? Thank you for that question, Hannah. Well, look, this is a gradual process. The incident this morning, which you're referring to, I believe, was an incident which has been addressed by the IDF. And what the IDF have told us is that this particular incident, you're right, the ceasefire did begin at 4 a.m. But this morning, the IDF did identify a vehicle with several suspects in a zone prohibited for movement in Lebanese territory, and the IDF troops fired to prevent them from advancing in compliance with the agreement. And the suspects have left the area. Now, I want to be clear with you, Hannah. From Israel's point of view, our Air Force remains ready to act across Lebanese territory, and our missile defense systems are still on a high state of defensive readiness. Israel and our army, under the direction of our government, will operate against anyone who attempts to breach the ceasefire agreement, and will continue to protect the citizens of this country. Next question is from David Clement from the News Forum. Can you comment on the Munim al-Jabri being killed in a Gaza school? Thank you for that question, David. I don't have any information on that. I'll endeavour to find some information and get back to you if I may. Next question here is from Celia from TV2 Norway. An Israeli journalist calls the boycott of Haaretz a campaign against independent media and a move away from democracy. Any comment on this? Thank you for that question, Celia. Let me share with you my thoughts on what you've just said. Look, Israel is very much a free country, has a free media, has a very active media. I think the worst criticism you'll find of the state of Israel will be inside Israel's own media, never mind international media. And we pride ourselves on the independence of our media. Now, when it comes to how the government spends its money in advertising or for whatever reason, when it comes to media, that is a decision for the democratically elected government of this country. And if the government and the cabinet decide to no longer spend an advertising budget with Haaretz, then that is, if that is their desire, they're in a democratically elected government, and if that is their will, and if it's endorsed by the cabinet, which receives its mandate from the people and the Knesset, then that is certainly a legitimate thing to do, and there's nothing more I can add to that. Frank Gardner from the BBC: has the Lebanon ceasefire made it easier to get a deal for Gaza? Thank you for that question, Frank. Let me, the Prime Minister addressed this particularly last night, and I'll share with you what he said. He gave 3 reasons why we've moved this forward. The third reason, I believe, that he shared last night was that this ceasefire, it separates the fronts and isolates Hamas. From day 2 of this war, Hamas has been counting on Hezbollah to fight by its side. So now with Hezbollah out of the picture, Hamas is left on its own. It will increase the pressure being put on Hamas, and that will help us in turn in our sacred mission of releasing our hostages. You know, when it comes to Hamas, the government has been crystal clear that we will complete the task of ensuring that Hamas will not have any governing capability or any military capability. There is no future, there is no possibility that Hamas will be in any governing or any military control of Gaza. That simply will not happen. And we will, of course, bring home all of our hostages and ensure that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. So I believe, Frank, that answers your question. Next question here I can see is from Jody Cohen from World is One News in India. What measures are being taken to prevent Hezbollah from infiltrating the Lebanese army, and is that and in that way retaining a presence in southern Lebanon? Thank you for that question, Jody. Look, that is a very important point that you raised. This is a new beginning for Lebanon. We believe that the majority of Lebanese people do not support the fact that Hezbollah has hijacked their country. This is an opportunity for the Lebanese army to exercise its sovereign right to control its own territory. Lebanon has become a failed state because Iran has infiltrated that country, and whatever Iran gets involved becomes a failed state. So this is an opportunity for Lebanon, for a brighter future for Lebanon. Yes, of course, for their people, which have been used as human shields, but also for the wider community in Lebanon. Our war has never been against the Lebanese people. It's always been against Hezbollah. So this is an opportunity for Lebanon to to decide on a better future. And if, as the IDF has made clear, Hezbollah do infiltrate or propose any threat to us in any way, shape or form, then Israel has made very, very clear that the ceasefire depends on what happens in Lebanon. So, of course, we will adhere to this agreement, but we will also enforce it forcefully. The US understands that, and so we are maintaining full freedom of military action. So if Hezbollah violates the agreement, and the infiltration of the Lebanese army would be an infringement of that agreement, and if Hezbollah tries to rearm itself, we will attack. If it tries to rebuild their terrorist infrastructure near the border, the Prime Minister's made clear, we will attack. If it launches a rocket, we will attack. If it digs a tunnel, if it brings in trucks carrying rockets, we will attack, and we will respond forcefully to any violation. Next question is from Dr. Abby Korb from SWC. Abby, could you just share with me what SWC is? Forgive my ignorance. And your question is, does Israel have any comment on the statement by Hamas leader to AFP claiming readiness for an agreement in Gaza and a prisoner exchange deal following the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire contingent on Israel's commitment? Additionally, is there any response to Hamas notifying mediators in Egypt, Qatar and Turkey about this proposal? Thank you, Abby, for that question. You're from the Simon Wiesenthal Center Global Communique. Thank you for that question, Abby, from the Simon Wiesenthal Center Global Communique. Look, the Americans and other negotiators in working with us to try and improve the situation in Gaza have made clear to a person, and the Americans have recently made this clear, Jake Sullivan recently made this clear, that it is Hamas that keeps walking away from a deal. Now, that is what has prevented this situation from coming to a better conclusion. And when it comes to Hamas, we have a duty to bring back our hostages, and we will do everything in our power. 101 of them, we will do everything in our power to bring home our hostages. Now, as has been our custom over the last 418 or 19 days, we will not negotiate from the podium. Negotiators will negotiate in the way in which they do. We won't. So it'll be better if we here in Israel, from the government, do not share our views on this particular case, on this particular incident. But what we will say is that Israel is committed to bringing home all of our hostages. Next question is from Celia from TV2 Norway. Again, Norway says they'll arrest the Prime Minister in Galant or Daef should they come to Norway. Will there be a similar reaction towards any Norwegian ministers should they arrive in Israel? Thank you for that question, Celia. Well, on the ICC's arrest warrant for Daef, who was a ruthless terrorist killer, he's been brought to justice. So I don't think there's much chance that he'll go to Norway anytime soon. And in return to, in answer to the other parts of your question, look, Norway has now, unfortunately, a default position to support the terrorists. It's as simple as that. There's not any idea about being equal-handed or having an open-minded view of the situation which we're facing, or any support for peace or any support for bringing people together. They have simply made a default decision to support the terrorists. That is why, what other reason can you possibly think of to back an ISIS-like state, the creation of an ISIS-like Palestinian state on our borders? What other, which would only be a reward for the October 7th massacre. So no one here in Israel is interested in Norway's unfortunate default position to constantly favor the terrorists over the democracy defending itself against terrorism. Next, share with CBS. Has an Egyptian delegation arrived to Israel last night to discuss a Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal? Thank you, Sheer from CBS, for that question. I think it's a better idea if we don't address these issues from the podium here. That is not an admission that they have arrived or haven't arrived, but I will simply share with you the fact that 101 of our hostages are still in captivity. Many of them are dead, but many of them are still alive. It's an open sore in Israeli society. It's the Prime Minister's, he's made this clear that it is our number one objective to bring them home. They must be set free right now. every single moment they're in captivity is a humanitarian catastrophe, and it's against humanitarian law, and they need to be brought home right now, and Israel will do everything in its power to bring them home. Okay, that seems to be the last question. So thank you for joining us here today. In the meantime, you can contact us in the usual way. Please do stay safe, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.